Hello and welcome to one more episode of the Cinematic Dogma. Today, as every single time, I'm joined by my incomparable friend Blake.
Oh, that's a nice compliment. Thanks, Jose. I'm happy to be here.
Do you bring anything with you?
I have two dogs that make me want to throw them out the window, but I won't. We love animals here.
Okay. You can think those things. Don't say them out loud. Okay. But today we're going to be talking about the Palme d'Or winner of this year of 2024, Anora.
Directed by Sean Baker, who we know from Tangerine.
Yeah, and the Florida Project.
I like to pretend the Florida Project didn't exist.
I mean, it has Willem Dafoe, so I'm fine with that.
It does, and you're not supposed to say that you're affected by marketing, but the way they marketed that film, it was like, I think they called it heartwarming and something about a testament to family, and I was like, no. Why don't you make a movie about a drug or a stripper prostitute marrying a Russian gangster?
That's what you thought
Yes, at that time, and I just waited and waited and waited.
Yeah, and as Anora's wishes, your wishes came true.
Finally. And the jury at Cannes recognized how good it was.
Yeah. But that's basically why we are talking about it. This is like the winner, and I think that at least Tangerine is a movie that I really like. It's like I approached it with very low expectations, given like the extremely low budget, and I always found it like pretty endearing about like the kind of a story of I want to look at some darker parts of our society, and I want to put it as a bit more of a fable. So I was like really interested of using a similar format in this case, about having like a prostitute or like a pretty woman Cinderella kind of a story, but a bit more, I don't know how to say it, fable style.
So comparisons to Cinderella cannot be avoided. But the first time I saw this trailer, I was like, "Oh, this is Pretty Woman for Gen Z. I'm here for it. Yeah, let's do it."
Yeah, it is. We won't spoil the whole thing, or at least I hope that we don't spoil the whole thing. There are some departures from one story to the other, let's just say. But yeah, overall, I was like super excited. It took like forever to also like to come out here, at least. And then it was like very limited release. And now this week was finally like a bit more available everywhere.
Yeah, in fact, we tried to watch this, was it 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago? Recently. And there were like one showing in San Francisco, one in Chicago. And so we waited till the wide release.
Yeah, we would. Yeah, and I don't know if our audience waited or not, but now we're going to tell them if it was worthy to wait for it or not.
I love to give strong opinions.
Yeah. So I don't know whose pick was that. Do you want to summarize, or do you want me to summarize?
I will summarize it. This one really is fresh in theaters, so we're not going to go too into detail. But we meet Anora, who goes by Annie. She is if we're to believe her, she's 25, 24?
25, yeah.
25. She is a stripper in Midtown Manhattan, although she lives in Brighton Beach, which is the southernmost neighborhood of Brooklyn, I think. But it's very, very Eastern European, the entire village. So she strips in Manhattan, and she takes clients like from the club. Sometimes she takes them on as her private clients as an escort. She seems to have a good rapport with most of the women in the strip club. Of course, there's one evil woman. Her name is Diamond, which reminded me very much of Showgirls.
The evil sisters in Cinderella.
It was very like Showgirls. The competition between
ones. Yeah.
So, sorry. Let's stick to Synopsis.
Yeah.
So she meets Ivan, who also goes by Vanya, and I'm guessing there's a Chekhov reference somewhere there, but I haven't looked into it too much. He is. We never really establish how old he is. He does say he's 21, but there's reason to believe he's lying. But he basically looks like a 15-year-old kid, and he acts like one too. He hires her for her private services, which goes very well. So he hires her again. And then I think it's the third time they see each other in this way. He kind of starts introducing her to his friends. But also he says, hey, why don't we get the girlfriend experience? You move into my mansion for a week. During that week, he hires a private jet and flies to Vegas with some of his friends, and they decide to get married. Vanya, or Ivan, tells her it's really so that they genuinely seem to have a good time together, but he's kind of being forced to go back to Russia to work for his dad's company, and if he had citizenship, he wouldn't have to go. But then very quickly after they get married, his father's kind of goons or entourage. Yeah. They find out he got married, and they come and try and, with all their money and influence, basically try and intimidate them to get this annulled. And from that point on, I don't think we should really tell. That's where let's just stop there.
I think that's fine. Yeah, I think that is the first act and the beginning of the second act. I think that's enough for actually the summary. So, what did you think of it? It's 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Yes. So let me say that I didn't expect to not like this film. I couldn't tell from the trailer whether this was going to be my sort of thing or not. I'll say that it did not feel like 2 hours and 20 minutes in the slightest. There were many things that really, really impressed me about this film. And you and I have this constant conversation going on about how we tend to like directors when they're early on in their career and they make risky stuff that doesn't always work, but it's still more interesting than when they become quote unquote a master. Yeah. So we always talk about Steve McQueen, right? I find Hunger and Shame more interesting than 12 Years a Slave. Yep. This is a situation where the earlier work of his I've seen, and I include Tangerine in this, it's interesting and weird and doesn't always work, but is still super interesting. But here, I think we see him take that style, and it just becomes way more confident. And you can see that he's maturing in a way as a director that doesn't take away from how interesting he is on screen, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah. When the movie was over, and I will describe a bit later, the ups and downs that I felt watching this movie, but when it was over, I look at my boyfriend and says this director is pretty good. It's actually really, really good. How he plays with the tonality, the tone of the movie, how the movie progresses, the shifts. And I feel I actually took away a more mature fable, the bittersweetness that I think that is actually always in his movies, that he portrays a bit as a fable, but it turns a bit bitter. And then you see growth on the characters. I feel he's amazing. I don't think that there is anyone else right now that he can dance that line in between being very sugar-coated, but also being a bit raw in points that it hurts, that you have this reality check says it's this could happen and this could suck, in Tangerine, or also here it's not everything is as pink coated as you expected at the beginning. And I think that the movie for me works way better when he actually pull the curtain and lets you just get a glimpse of that, because I was pretty bored at some points. It's even when it was starting the third act and there was still 45 minutes left of the movie, I was is this going to be very sugar coated and heartwarming bullshit, and I won't spoil how it ends, but it's towards the end I was I can see how this movie can win a Palme d'Or.
Yeah, I totally get it.
Love the ending. I love the ending. Yeah.
The ending is perfect, and you and I both love endings that there's almost no resolution. There's not really resolution. Yeah. This ending, I was no, this is perfect. This is perfect.
Yeah.
They better not keep going, and they didn't. The credits rolled, and I was
Yeah.
like, yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's exactly how I feel about like with my mouth open about like perfect. You actually did like a curveball, and you pull it. That's amazing. And I agree with what you're saying. Is like this shows that he's fairly mature about like he was like very methodical, like building up, and this fell is like, oh, this is the emotional payoff that the touring horse could have, but it didn't for me.
I have to say that there's a film, oh my gosh, how can I not remember the name of this film? The director is Yagentsov, and it was about the family where their son goes missing.
Oh, Loveless.
Loveless, yes. So Loveless has an ending that we haven't stopped talking about in 10 years. I feel like there's something in the water in Russia where they just get how to leave their emotionally decimating stories. Like, here, we're just going to end right here.
Yep. It's the perfect timing of okay. Yeah, I really like it. But there were like times for me. It's like there were times that it was dragging, and then there is like the second act turns into something different. Like the first one is more hedonist. The second part, if it's more like a comedy, like an absurd comedy, and then the third part is more of a drama. I would say that is each one of the acts is so different from the others that I feel like they could have been a bit shorter, like some of them. Like the first act, for example, for me could have been a bit shorter. I know that it works perfectly on the large scheme of things about like, no, you need to have like more time with these characters at the beginning.
I don't disagree with you. I didn't feel like it dragged on too much. I do remember checking the time kind of at the beginning of the third act. And I do remember, so in the beginning, I mean, a good portion of the first act takes place in a strip club and in the services of prostitutes. So everything that comes with that came with it. And there was at some point where I was like, I don't need to see another eye banker get a lap dance. So I can see there are certain places that dragged. For me, it wasn't that much of an issue, but I did want to comment on what you said about each of the acts. Now, they're not so distinct. They have like title cards, Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. It's more naturalistic, but the acts have these, they're not radically different. What I'm trying to say is he does weave in and out of genres, like from slapstick comedy to like this intense emotional drama, but he does it in a way that is honestly kind of astonishing. Because when things started to get really funny in the second act, I was like, oh, this is going to go downhill, and it didn't.
Yep. Yeah, it actually like just regained the terrain, and I think that one of the reasons why this works is because that actress, Mikey Madison?
Mikey Madison, yep.
Mikey Madison, she's pretty good. I mean, it feels like she's like playing a very, how do you say, like crass character at the beginning, but the nuance that she adds in some points, I think that it makes like the payoff of you are like trying to be like really, really strong, in some points of the movie, and you are like adding the right nuance to your character for still being crass, still being strong, and also at the same time showing the right vulnerability for just making the audience connect with this is a human story. It's not so much about like a Cinderella or a Pretty Woman story.
I agree. I think first off, when the film started and it said Mikey Madison, I honestly was hoping that was Michael Madsen, and that he was just using a nickname. Michael Madsen, isn't he the guy that's Bill's brother in Kill Bill?
Oh yeah. You're right.
I was like, is he in this movie?
That would be an hilarious kind. Yeah, that would be hilarious, like changing the main character for him, but keeping the rest of the story. Him saying this like, "Oh, I'm a bit older than you. I'm 25."
But so she was also in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I had completely forgotten that. But I want to say, I want to pile on top of what you said. She is fucking talented as hell. Like, the performance she did, and even weaving in and out of those genres, like, all of it was just perfect. This girl's going to be a star, and she should be. I also want to say that Yvonne's casting was brilliant. I don't know how they found that teenager in a 21-year-old body. Like,
he's 21. Incredible. Yeah, he's an actor. Yeah, he's an actor. Yes.
And I think without the talent of those two and the weird chemistry that works in a way that it shouldn't, this film wouldn't have have pulled it off,
Yeah.
but everything worked.
Yeah, and I think that also Ivan like does it like pretty well, like the change of registries, like the change of character that he does. That is like, oh, I totally believe like the first act, and then like the changes on the other acts. I'm like, okay, hey, this is pretty well played for being a 21-year-old. It's like a really good mirror to Mikey Madison. I felt like yeah, this is like perfectly done. Like the comedic relief, like with some of the characters on the acts too, I felt it was like pretty well done. Like the comedy tempo, like the baptism part is like people in the cinema, I don't know in yours, but in ours, like people were laughing, like how the guy was struggling during the baptism.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so
It was a
I feel
laugh
like
out loud, like in a weird way.
Yeah.
It's a laugh out loud film, even though I would never even call this a dramedy. It's a drama, but there are moments that are super funny.
Yeah, I could call it like a human dramedy, honestly, without getting 100% soap opery, but pretty close.
You could call it a dramedy and not be wrong, but I would never expect this. This for me firmly belongs in the drama section at Blockbuster. So
What is a blockbuster?
you missed it, and it was great.
Sure. Should we go over the questions? Because I'm a bit afraid of giving away too much.
Yep, let's do it.
So, Blake, would you watch this movie again?
Yes, without a doubt. And I would even watch it pretty soon. Like, my husband was supposed to come with me. He didn't. If you wanted to see it, I'd probably go back and watch it.
Yeah, I will watch it again. I think that that some movies is like retroactively makes me dislike a director. About like you watch like something and you look back and it's like, okay, maybe they were not as good as we thought they were. I think that it's a bit more the other way around. That it makes me go back and just check in Red Rocket that I never watched it.
Yeah, you're talking about
About Sam Baker.
Sam Baker. Yeah, I'm just happy that somebody gave him money and let him let him show us what he can do not on an iPhone. And I say that without joking, because I feel like Tangerine was great, but it was a kind of gimmicky. It's like, let's just give him the right resources and show us what you can do, and he blew me away.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be completely fair, is like he was doing it in iPhone because that's what he could afford to do it, and there are no basically like professional actors. The only professional actor I think that it may be Toros, like the guy that played Toros in this movie. I think that it was in Tangerine.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's my point.
Yeah.
Is he did that because he didn't have money, but that became the gimmick, right? So just give him enough money to show us what he can do, and yeah, he did great.
He did it pretty well. Yeah. Would you recommend this movie?
Yes, there's a lot of adult material here in terms of sex and nudity, so it would be limited. But yes, to any adult, I would be like, yeah, go check this out. It's fun and weird.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that it was going to be more sugar-coated or cutting back in some of the explicit content. So before we went to watch it, I actually mentioned it to my parents. Now if they ask me again, I have to say that it's like, maybe not. Maybe this is a bit too sexual for you folks. I think that is still like an amazing story. But yeah, it needs a disclosure of you're going to see like very explicit content here. It doesn't hold back.
No, and it gets a little freaky. Let me remind you of one of the dances she performs for Ivan in his home. Yeah, I mean, it's just more explicit than a lot. And also, I paid attention because women are gross.
Okay, but at least it was not Gaspar Noé's love.
Well, I can't complain. There's a lot to see that I enjoyed in that film.
Okay, this is not pornographic, but it may be, like way too explicit for a lot.
It's salacious. Nothing about it is meant to be titillating, in my opinion. It's just like, hey, she is a stripper and an escort. This is the reality.
Yeah, and she does it. She knows her craft.
She does. She's very talented.
Basically. Yeah. So yeah, recommended it, but being careful with all of the sexuality. Would you remember it?
I mean, I'm going to remember what's in the trailer. This is kind of a sprawling epic film. I'm sorry, I'm trying to think. I don't know if I'll remember this or not. I'm gonna put yes, but this would be a good one
Okay.
to check in a year and be like, do we remember anything about this?
What I'm afraid is only I'm going with yes too, but what I'm afraid is only remembering the first act when I think that it gets more interesting towards the end of the movie, and the trailer emphasizes a lot the first act and part of the second act, and I think that the interesting core for me is the last part, and I wish that I don't forget that part.
So you'll understand this, but it's too spoilery. There's a set of characters that come in about the third act that are super memorable for me. So I'm hoping I remember that.
Yep, yep, exactly that.
Yeah.
Yep. Like the contrast between like all of the characters and how like things like settle down is what I really like. And I hope that I don't forget that. Uh is there anything artistic about Anora?
Yeah, there's a lot. I'd love to see what the original shooting script was and what they ended up making, but I think the script is very well done. The direction, the
Yeah.
performances, in fact, the directing was really, really strong. The choices of music. There's this interesting thing they do, and a lot of filmmakers do this, but this film does it so well, is that there's a lot of music in it, but it interestingly flows between music in our world and music in their world. And it's just
Yeah.
really cool how it was done. So, yes, there's a lot that's artistic about this for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I really like that kind. I don't remember diegenic. I don't remember what is it called. Like when it's like within world music and outside music. But I agree with you on the music choices, the aesthetic choices. I felt like it was like pretty solid without being over the top. Neon light aesthetics for the Gen Z generation. I feel it's like, okay, this is still fine. It's not like completely over the top. I like there is a beat. Were you going to say something?
This film, all joking aside, is what A24 films want to be when they grow up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And the funny thing is that Sean Baker, he actually did the Florida Project at least. I don't know if Red Rocket, but the Florida Project was with A24.
Oh, wow.
And he had like a bit of, yeah, that aesthetic that I think that A24 like really likes to promote. This one, I feel like, hey, this a bit further. It's a bit, like beyond this. It's a bit experimental. It has like the fish lens from time to time that I love when modern cinema does it. Like The Favorite with Yorgos Lanthimos. I know I'm a sucker for this, but if you do it in the right measure, I feel this actually looks cool. It doesn't look like gratuitous or anything. But I feel like, hey, from a directing perspective, this guy controls the tone of what he's doing perfectly.
Yep, I agree.
In a way that is, I think a way that I don't see that common. The acting, I was like mind blown by it at the beginning. I felt like, oh, there's going to be like a damn comedy or whatever. And it's like, no, this is like a super well crafted movie. Do you think that this is a timeless piece?
Yeah, absolutely. It's Cinderella for a modern age, but Cinderella's, like you said before, it's more than a Cinderella story, but the themes about love and money and
Yeah,
it's all timeless.
and family.
Yes. And family.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think that is a bit more of a, well, yeah, let's just leave it at that. I think that you defined it perfectly, fully timeless. Would you turn Anora into a TV show?
I think I would be down to watch that. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, it felt a little long as a film, but there's more in this world that I would like to see more of. So yes.
Yeah. I think I agree with the part of I would like to see more of this world, but one of the things that I really like on this movie is the change of tone as the movie progresses. And I think that those change of tone in episodes, they could be like more drastic and they will be more jarring. Like just seeing, it wouldn't feel like as organic as here.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, there is a trigger.
I definitely see what you say, and I'm fine keeping it as a film. Period.
So yes or no? You
No,
will
no.
watch it.
My answer is still yes, but I totally hear your arguments. Like I agree with you to an extent.
Yeah. But you're gonna still watch it. Okay, that's fair. Could Anora being a sword? Could it have been a sword?
No, it could have been shorter than 2 hours and 20 minutes, but there's world building, there's learning about these characters now. It needs.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that because we spend so much time with them, that's the reason why you relate on the third act more towards like who they are as human being. You know, so yeah, I think that this at the beginning I was thinking that this could have been a sword, but the emotional payoff, all of the resolution felt so well crafted. Is that this only works because I already spent like 1 hour and 40 minutes with these people.
And, yes, to add on to that, if you think about the Mickey we met in the first 30 seconds of the film compared to the Mickey that we say goodbye to at the end, like the emotional journey she went on is tremendous, and I believed every second of it.
Yep. Yeah. Do you think Anora could have been better?
This is not a perfect film, but there's nothing glaring to me, so I'm just going to say no.
Yeah, I'm going to go with no. I think that when I was in the second act watching it, it's like, well, I know what I'm going to be choosing for this. But then it's like, when I look back, it's one of these flawed, but it doesn't matter kind of movies.
It just works.
It has like a value. Yep, it has a value on its flawness, in its flaws. I think that is like those flaws what makes it like even more human and more relatable. So yeah, definitely like just keep it as is. Cool. And I think that we should score this. Do you want to score it first? Do you want me to score it?
I can score it first. This is tough, and I feel like I would need one or two other screenings to figure out exactly how I feel about this, but I'm going to give it an 8.75.
Okay, my score is an 8.5. I had already written it down before you gave me like any hints. But yeah, for me, it's just a tiny bit lot, like a 9, maybe because of the 2 hours and 20 minutes and because of this format of a very long first and second act, when I think that the punch is a bit later on the movie. But overall, it's like I think that is one of these movies, as we were discussing like recently about that article that you told me is not your opinion, but it's like how comes like just started choosing like other winners that they were not like full art house movies. I think that this is a very good middle ground between like a just entertainment and an art house movie.
Agreed. Yep, it's the Pulp Fiction of our day.
Yeah, I think that it would be like a bit more elevated, a tiny bit more elevated than a Pulp Fiction. Not better, but maybe a tiny bit more elevated.
Wow. Bold statement. I don't disagree. I'm going to have to sit with that, think about it.
Okay, but anything else that we want to say about Anora?
Go see this movie, unless breasts offend you.
Yeah, breast and female anatomy.
Oh, there's full frontal male in this. A little bit. We see Yvonne do a backward somersault naked.
Oh, I didn't catch. I think that is that your frame may actually like be able to process more frames when you perceive that there is going to be like male genitalia on the screen.
I pulled up my phone and recorded the screen, so I'll send it to you.
Okay. Okay, to everyone out there, thank you so much. As Blake said, consider going to watch it unless you're offended with nudeness, with the human body, and with good films. If you're offended by good films, don't go
see this. No, don't.
Yeah. Hey, anything else?
Until next time, thanks for listening.
Bye.